One announcement. Take this. There's some out there. There's little cards that say Vigilantes Inc. We're making this film because of the generosity of our supporters. Many of you and our executive producers. We're going to make this film now available Friday the 13th. And it'll be available for free streaming. And we also have copies of the film available for any groups that want to show them. We're going to be having big showings around the country, especially a giant one in Georgia, of course. So without further ado, first of all, I would like to bring up our director, David Ambrose. Come on down, David. Make sure that you spread the word and go to SaveYourVote. SaveYourVote.org. SaveYourVote.org. Spread that around. Okay, grab a seat. And I'm very honored to have the star of our show, Maj Gamaliel Turner. Please come up, Maj. And I'm particularly honored and proud to have the author of The Hidden History of the War on Voting, a man who's so valuable to America that we had to name a show after him. The star of the Thom Hartmann Show, Thom Hartmann, will be taking your questions, and hopefully you'll have some answers. I don't know if you have any comments, but then you can take the questions.
Thanks, Greg. And how about a round of applause for Mr. Palast? The genius who put this thing together. Before we, and so nice to, by the way, so nice to meet you. What a great movie. And David, it's great to have you up here. I got a couple questions, and I think you probably have the answers if you don't mind, just before we start. If I can. If Brian Kemp knocks 340,000 people off the voting rolls who are legitimately on there, most of them are black people, yes, and then he runs against Stacey Abrams and he wins by 51,000 votes. Yeah. What the hell? I mean, is that really exactly what happened?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
You want to speak?
This, okay. I think the amazing piece and part of what was depicted in the documentary are the 3 layers deep in that onion when you peel it back, and that Georgia did go blue, and the Secretary of State won his position and the Governor won his position, but every other position went blue. Now how is that? I will tell you, it has been the same way forever. Voter suppression, lost votes, disenfranchising people has been the same. Not just Georgia, but that's why the South is still red. That's why the same people are still in power. We just don't put the ballots in the garbage can anymore. This is a full-time job for them. I don't know how many of you caught the fact that Mr. Russell proudly announced that he sold toilet paper with a smile on his face. And I'm loving this audience. First of all, thank you all for being here. But there's a connection. There's a full, everyday, 24-hour, 7 days a week, 4 weeks a month, full-time job of doing what he does best. That was just not a common, everyday, ordinary individual that challenged those folks. He is the chairman of the Republican Party for Muskogee County. And anybody that knows anything at all about politics knows that the chairman of the party of the county knows where every vote in that county is. He knows exactly where everybody lives and has access to everything. So being able to purge votes is easy. And that's why our former President Trump was so mad at Georgia. Yep. Where are my 11,000 votes? You got yours. Where am I? So just to answer your question, that's a 24-hour job there. Our problem is we're part-time. we get all energetic and all about trying to get the vote out when it's time to vote. This thing has to be an ongoing part of our life. That PTSD that you see from the Georgia voters of color, of age, that emotion is there because this is what we've had to deal with all our life. My Uncle Joe in the documentary turned 97, World War II vet. So when he talked about being able to get up and go vote, that was a thing for him. My father being Abernathy's assistant pastor holding down West Harlem that my grandfather built was a thing for them. And to know that that is now history. There is a gap in the generation of Americans, not my people, not the people of color, of Americans, that think that we have overcome. We are going backwards. There's a constant conversation about America, Americans. I want to be an American too. I want to be recognized as American too. I am not, and I have not. And our people, not just people of color, our people that are disenfranchised, our people that are uneducated, our people that are living in the suburbs in the country, that they refuse to provide the resources necessary to educate them, that they continue to control them, to push them in a certain direction, continue to control their mind, to think that it is a collective we, and the actions that they are taking is for America. When you peel the onion back, it is to keep that individual that's 1/8 of a human there. And that's not the America that I fought for. Sorry for taking this.
That's good.
Yeah. So much pops into my head here. Was the guy selling toilet paper doing it for Charles Koch?
Yeah, well, yeah, so one of the issues actually with Stacey Abrams running was to try to stop the massive clear cutting of the pines, Georgia pines. And so she ran up against the Brothers Koch, because Georgia Pacific, which is the toilet paper company, almost all your toilet paper comes from Georgia Pacific with different brands. And that's Brothers Koch. So she took on the Brothers Koch, she took on a lot of powers, and the only way that they could win is by removing legit voters. And every 4 years, every 2 years, they come up with a new thing. It's like whack-a-mole that we have to uncover. That's why we had to update this film to make it national.
So to what extent have those 340,000 people plus the additional 50,000 cents, to what extent have they gotten their right to vote back? I mean, are we, and you know, what's going on right this minute?
We've had, obviously, we had Reverend Warnock and John Ossoff and Biden win Georgia. That was because we ran a massive campaign. The first version of this film was aimed at Georgia, and we covered the state with billboards and meetings. I mean, it was a massive, massive effort to get a couple 100,000 people back on the rolls. And we even went into federal court. I acted as an expert witness. So this is not a movie, this is a movement. And when you're in places like Georgia and Texas, where we're going to be showing it with Rodney Ellis is going to be sponsoring a showing there, we'll be in Arizona, we'll be in states where it makes a difference. That's why I'm deputizing you to get people to save your votes, send it out to every one of your lists, your contacts, whatever, organizations, to get this film downloaded so that people know what they're fighting about and what the latest operation is. So what I'm concerned with now is there's been almost no discussion of this massive explosion of vigilante voter attacks which are coming our way. There were only 88 vigilantes just in Georgia 2 years ago. Now it's 40,000 have been signed up by True the Vote. So this is very serious business, and we have got to take it back. That's how Georgia was won. I'm not partisan. I just wanted the voters, not the vigilantes, and not the purge in general of Georgia, to take away those votes. So it's about an action, and we got those votes. We've got at least a couple 100,000 of those people back on the rolls.
I think it's particularly ironic that the Secretary of State of Georgia, his name is constantly mispronounced in the media. His actual name is Brad Rafson Perger. It's spelled that way, RAFSENPURGER. That's the Secretary of State of Georgia. It's like God, laughing. It's yeah. Wow. This is just marvelous. I'm blown away by it. Does anybody have questions from the audience? Mimi.
Yeah. How to get you?
Wait.
Oh, we have a microphone.
Oh, okay. State your name. Thank you. It's such a great film.
Say your name.
Thank you. Mimi Kennedy. Thank you. To get yourself back on the voter rolls, is it a one-on-one deal? You say you went to court and you got people back. Was that just some mass acceptance? People have to go and represent themselves and get themselves back on the voter roll. So this is an awareness campaign so that people will do it or accept the help of an activist who knows that it's happening and goes to help people to do it. Is that the activity?
There's two.
You can have this one.
Hello. Okay.
Hello.
Okay. So it's a multi-level operation. One is to fight the legislation which allows these vigilante attacks. Two is to go into courtrooms. And so Gerald Griggs, who is the president of the NAACP, but is also a lawyer for the Palast Investigative Fund. And so go into court. We're suing on these things.
And that's how you got them back?
Yeah, some of it back, but I also said we ran a massive campaign on the purge voters. Rosario Dawson did a big billboard for us over Atlanta, big giant billboard. Are you purged? Check your registration. So we do a massive campaign to ask people to check their registrations and see if they've been challenged. One of the big problems we have is that when we had the official state purges by Raffensperger and in other states, they can't take your name off the ballot within 60 days of a federal election. But under the new vigilante laws and these self-appointed vigilantes, they're doing it on election day. And even after election day if you've mailed in your ballot. So you have to be prepared. So we're telling people such things as
Take a screenshot when you find it on
Yeah.
your computer or your phone.
well, the other thing is, so what you want to do is we're telling people, bring your voter ID, bring an ID with your photo, official ID, bring a proof of your address, because you can be challenged on the spot. And we're working things like in Wisconsin, explain to people that if you're told you're purged or you're challenged, you can re-register on the spot on the same day in some states. So we're talking about people taking care of their own vote. Don't expect a party, don't expect a lawyer. Assume that you got to handle your own vote. But the other thing is to warn people. That's why we're spreading out the movie by kind of entertaining people with a warning.
If I could, let me give you, come back here, don't put it down. You asked a wonderful question. The answer to that, as an individual, as a Georgia resident, there's nothing you can do. Nothing. We don't find out until the day before. We don't find out until the day of. There are no letters that come to you in the mail to tell you anything.
Okay. So,
Mr. Russell asked on the way out, nobody caught this. Is a private conversation between he and I. And the conversation was simple. Mr. Turner, I am going to go find out first thing Monday morning exactly what happened. As if he was talking to me. He was talking to himself. Because they were not supposed to not mail the absentee ballots out. See, they did not mail my absentee ballot to me. So I called in and asked for it. However, if they had mailed them out,
Huh?
the recognition of the 4,000 challenges would have never been done. I would have received it,
Right.
I would have filled it out, I would have turned it in, and when they received it, they'd send them off to the side.
Wow.
And this is within 10 days of the election.
In LA, they wouldn't even be able to send you a mail ballot unless you were on the voter rolls.
We were already tagged.
Wow.
I'm not speculating, I am telling you this three-layer chess game that has been played forever, that is played today, and now we have AI kicking in to the picture, and we're doing it on a day-to-day basis. We're playing chess.
Yeah.
They are financing themselves 5 to 10 years in the future to continue to hold on to that power.
Uh-huh.
See, being able to vote is power. That's why the South is still red. That's why I don't know if it's as much of me, not individual, but the me, that they don't want their vote to count. But Stacey Abrams goes and you can take a whole county of Collegeville, Fort Valley. There's only a town of 3,200 individuals. 1,800 of them are college students. They can all go down and vote for the same people and not win the mayorship or the city council. I don't know how that is, but that still happens today. Because something is happening to the vote. And they have some wonderful meetings. They have a great organization because all of their representatives on the Republican side of the House that control access, and that's why they went and purged the personnel that are in charge of the voter registration or the votes that come in. Why they purged them out and put their people in. So they don't have to go sneak in at night to go clean the computer system. They just go in and delete it. Then if stuff comes in, it puts it in, you check, it goes back out that, yes, I'm good to go. Then they come back in tonight, you clean
Well,
out.
that's why I say if anybody nationwide checks their registration on a computer, in any digital way, on a phone, if you are on the voter rolls, take a screenshot, and it's time-stamped and dated. So when they tell you you're off, you go, I am not, I was there on
Mr.
October
Turner, I don't know
11th.
what happened. We just put it in last time.
Exactly, yeah.
Well, it's not in now. Okay, let me put it in. And that's what I'm saying. I'm in California communicating back. This is my problem, but my situation was collective. I put in the information, I register, I pull it up, it's there, and then when it comes time to vote, I'm not getting the information. I call down because
You knew
I
to,
understand to do. I get scared.
you understood to do it.
And when the person of color
Yeah.
that input the data goes and opens the system back up, it's gone.
Yeah.
So I would tell you there's more happening at night other than just going to check the machines before the data in there. They're working 24 hours.
I know, and our side has been naive about that for 20, if not longer, years. So thank you for this, because let's wake up.
Well, yeah, go for it, David. Yeah, jump in here.
Alton Russell, Pam Reardon,
Yeah.
right? Sorry.
Try the other one.
I got two. Alton Russell, Pam Reardon. They want you to make this think this is some, when Major Turner loses his vote, that it's a bureaucratic accounting issue, and their hands are clean. What you saw here is that Governor Talmadge in 1946, with the help of the Ku Klux Klan, wanted you to think the same exact thing. There's many decision makers who are involved in removing people from the voter rolls, like Major Turner, county clerks, election supervisors. If we can get this film out there, and people know that by taking away that vote, we don't believe it's a clerical issue. It's not a bureaucratical issue. They are following in the footsteps of the Ku Klux Klan, and we need to put that pressure on them.
I wanted to add one thing to all this, and that is that in 1993, Congress, this was the first year Bill Clinton was president, and he pushed this through. It's called the National Voter Registration Act, NRVA. It's sometimes called the Motor Voter Act, because one of its provisions that got Republicans all flipped out is that you could, the secretaries of state, or excuse me, driver's license offices now have a little checkbox that says, register me to vote. And in some states, for example, in Texas, you've got Ken Paxton, the lieutenant governor, or the attorney general, just last week came out and said, we've found 1,500 illegal immigrants who are registered to vote. Well, these were people who got driver's licenses and checked the box not realizing what it was. They're not going to vote. No, none of these people are going to show up and go, yeah, here I am, just find me. They're not there to vote. But the National Voter Registration Act, in both the head note of the act and in the black body text of the act, says, and this is very intentional, this was Bill Clinton's plan, says voting is a right in the United States. Now, this is very important language. The Supreme Court has said that we have a right to own a gun. So right now, in every state in the union, if the state wants to take your gun away, they have to go to a court and they have to convince a judge before they can come take your gun. But the Supreme Court also looked at five Republicans on the Supreme Court looked at the 1993 National Voting Registration Act in 2000 at Bush v. Gore and said, no, we're not acknowledging that right. We're going to ignore that. And the Supreme Court has had several opportunities to establish a right to vote because Congress did it already. And they consistently, the Republicans on the Supreme Court consistently refused to do that. We're talking about passing the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. The language is the same as the 1993 legislation. It's been on the damn books for 20 years now. So, did you want to add something?
Yes. Test. The piece of part is important is that we're cycling. That we stopped in 68, I think, is when that Housing Act was signed a year after King was killed. Not a year, a week after King was killed. Thank you, President Johnson. And you fast forward, you get close to when Obama became president. You fast forward the next 50 years on the other side of that. We're sitting right now, that next 50 years is 2049 for this cycle. We are hollering at the top of our voice that we are about to lose our democracy. We see what we have lost behind the Supreme Court. We see what we have lost behind not putting the people that we thought were going to be in power. We know what happened when Bush ran, which would have made a difference. We know what happened when Ms. Clinton lost her race, which would have made a difference. And we are where we are today, with a fear that we're about to lose our democracy. You all know, I tell a lot of you all going after, before 1970, you all understand what that means. The others don't. Once you've lost something, once you have lost a piece of the goodness of our nation, you're not going to get it back. My children's children, and their children will never know the greatness that America has the potential to be, because everything about it would have disappeared. And that's why maintaining democracy, some rule of law in our nation is so important. Because once it is taken away, you'll never get it back. And you can see the last efforts. I think an era, modern day era is about 100 years. You go back 100 years from today, and that's where we are. You know, I'm 3 generations removed from slavery. My grandfather could not read or write, have a driver's license, or vote. His son, my father, had that opportunity. Uncle Joe, my father, everybody before me had fought for this nation, for the right to be looked at as an equal. That is yet to happen in this nation. We've been told I'm sorry, but equality is not there. If that was the case, if equality was there, then it wouldn't be, we've got to. We are not a part of that we. That red, white, and blue, that God and country. The problem is we have a whole lot of God on our side. We have a whole lot of love for country on our side. But we are not able to share the same love for country and our Father and God we trust as everybody else claims.
Actually, if I may, I have a question for David. David, you did a hell of a lot of research for this film. I know, Greg did a lot of work too, but I know you carried a lot of that load. And I'm just curious your thoughts on Donald Trump became president in 2016 because of 44,000 votes in 3 states. Those 3 states are all being targeted right now by voter vigilantes. What do you think is going to happen this year?
It all comes to turnout. If we don't go out there, the vigilantes will win. And we need to vote for who we want to vote for, but we need to make sure that we're taking our vote back from the vigilantes. Otherwise, they will win. They are highly calculated. They have looked at all of the tabulations of the spread of demographics, precincts, you name it, and they can shave off, they're targeted to shave off what votes they need to win. So we need to turn out, we need to spread the word that your vote will be taken away from them. So vote for who you want to, but also just fight back against them.
Did you find any evidence that those 44,000 votes were, or that win? Okay, go for it.
Okay.
What was the result?
Okay.
You're talking about the Trump victory over Hillary Clinton. We went, I have another film, which you can download at gregpalast.com for gratis. Also, my great director, Dave Ambrose, was directing that, called The Best Democracy Money Can Buy. And we went to Michigan and in Detroit. Now, if you remember, Hillary lost Michigan by 10,000 votes. They talked about a recount. That was not what was going on. Jill Stein paid not for a recount, but to count 75,000 ballots which were never tallied. What happened was the machines broke down in Detroit. The Wayne County, which is Detroit, begged the governor and the state to give them new voting machines. They said, our machines are not going to work. They're going to break down. The state refused to allow them to put in new voting machines. 75,000 ballots were not read by the scanners. So they had 75,000 ballots. So the so-called recount was actually taking those 75,000 ballots and reading them. You look at them and tally them. And Trump's margin from 10,000 was quickly sinking. Then Trump's lawyers went to the state Supreme Court and said, stop the count, just like they did in 2000. They stopped the count of those 75,000 ballots on the grounds that Jill Stein doesn't have standing, which means because she couldn't, even if 75,000 ballots from the Green Party, she wouldn't get the electors. So what happened was it was actually stopped. So that was Michigan. We had a spoilage problem of ballots in Wisconsin, which was another roughly 18,000, something like that. And again, the stopping of the counting of ballots which could not be read by the scanners. This is the game that was going on. So I'm telling you right now, if you get the film downloaded for nothing at the Best Democracy Money Can Buy at gregpalast.com, and it goes through the details of these problems, besides the purges and the rest of the business. So don't be fooled. There was tremendous evidence that Clinton had won that race in those states. Because the dirty little secret of American democracy is that we don't count all the ballots. Just so you know, people show up. People show up to vote, and they're not on the voter rolls, and they're handed a provisional ballot. That's a placebo ballot. Makes you think that you voted, but you haven't. In the last numbers I looked at in the presidential election, there were 2.5 million I think it was about 2.3 million provisional ballots, and 1.5 million of those ballots were not counted. Think about that. Were any of those people arrested for fraud? If they're fraudulent or wrongful voters, arrest them. But 1.5 million Americans lost their right to vote. The chance your ballot, you'll get a provisional ballot and it won't be counted, is 700% higher if you're black than if you're white. So it's not just anyone's vote that's thrown in the dumpster. It's racial. And by the way, the racial bias is, when you talk about racial vote suppression, it's really class war by other means. So the evidence is there, and we're not seeing it, we're not talking about it. When I was at BBC television, we had to report all spoiled ballots, all disqualified ballots. That's never reported here. It's never reported here. In Florida in 2000, 178,000 ballots were not counted. That's what they were looking at. You can see how someone voted by looking at the ballot. But 178,000 ballots were not counted. They were counting them, and the Supreme Court stopped the count. 5 Republicans on the Supreme Court said, don't count, stop the ballot count. Stop the ballot count when it was down to George Bush winning Florida and the presidency by 527 votes. If they let the count go on for one more hour, Al Gore would have been president.
Well, it was for a little bit.
Well, and let me add,
It was on the floor for 2 or 3 hours.
yep, and just in the last year, Ken Paxton, the Secretary of State actually, but Ken Paxton organized, has put 2 million Texas voters on what they call the suspense list, which means that those 2 million people, when they show up to vote, will be given a provisional ballot. And those ballots will not be counted unless those voters, within 4 days of the election, show up at the Secretary of State's office with proof of citizenship and residency. And they're not even being told that they have to do this.
That's the piece.
And it's mostly people in Houston and Dallas. It's mostly Democrats and a whole lot of black people, of course.
Just real quick, if you don't know it, this is 2024. And artificial intelligence and technology is doing everything for us. All you have to do is ask a question. So is there information you want on where people are, who they are, and what they do? That's instantaneous. But when it comes to voting, ensuring that everybody has the right to vote and everybody's vote is counted. Some strange reason, certain demographics of people are pushed off to the side. Things happen, rules change, but we are never given an opportunity to correct them. I could go physically to the poll and get ready to vote, but it's address, zip code. Even today, my signature from when I registered 20 years ago has changed. It's 70-something years old, so that's a problem. I need to go home and find something that matches, or find my original registration card and bring it back up. So, for me, at my age, it's difficult to try to sell me certain things or thought processes, because it doesn't even make sense when it comes out of their mouth. It hurts, but that's the reality. As my father talked to, it's hard being black in America. And even worse, it's hard trying to vote. Because voting and representation equals power. And to give that up when you're in charge of it, nobody's going to do that. Nobody wants to give up their power. And nobody wants to give up the authority that they have over others, is what I'm finding in America.
We can put a man on the moon, but we can't count a goddamn vote. Yes, go ahead.
Lynn from Southern California. I hope you can hear me through the mask.
Yeah, just fine.
This discussion and this movie shows a lot of pain, injustice, abuse of power, and it gives me a lot of despair. But I know that despair is not an option. thanks to one speaker up there. And this whole, season, election season has been a roller coaster, a major roller coaster. And when Kamala and Tim came along, we all got excited again, and then, the suppression makes you worry. Do we have a chance or not? Well, recently, Tom, you were talking about Alan Lichtman's keys of predicting successfully since 1984 the winner of the presidential elections. He's predicted it every single time correctly. The one time he predicted that Al Gore would win, he won, but he didn't become president. So I know that he's predicted that Kamala and Tim are going to win this time, but thanks to your movie and the cautions that are out there, we all have to do our part to do something. And what I do
is there a question in there? Or?
What I do is I go to talk to people. It's more of a commentary and a reaction to the film, and food for thought. Like here in California, there's just one quick thing, and it's a side issue, but I have to say it. We are about to enter a mass incarceration period again if Prop 36 passes. So everyone here, take a good look at Prop 36 and vote no on it, because if not, it's going to be a massive war on drugs, and more black and brown bodies are going to go to prisons and instead of college. And I guess that's all.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you. I've
You
learned I'm Ruth Strauss, LA.
Thanks.
I learned from you about, I will be going to our local registrar's office about the signature matching. Of course, in blue California, it's not going to make that much of a difference. But what I do want to know from you all is, for activists, beyond making sure that people are registered, et cetera, what do you suggest that we do in a collective way? Thank you.
My quick answer is raise hell. We need to be spreading this film around. I've written about this a number of times over at HartmanReport.com. Greg writes about it at GregPalast.com. We need to be, every time you read an article in the newspaper, if there's any comments allowed, speak out loudly, speak on social media, tell everybody, that's my thought. I don't know, David, what do you say?
Yeah, let's make it illegal again. This is going to be our third presidential election. This is going to be our third presidential election without the Voting Rights Act intact, and we can't have another one. We can't have another one. Let's reinstate the Voting Rights Act. Let's pass new legislation. Let's make this illegal again. We don't allow guys in white sheets to run through the streets and terrorize and intimidate people, to bring up generational trauma, to conduct physical violence like you saw with Olivia Pearson in the film, like we saw the school board in Quitman, what Major Turner gone through. Let's make it illegal.
Just real quick, how many of you plan on voting? Okay, in relationship to the question that you asked, what can we do? Adopt the youth. Find somebody in that 18 to 20 years old. You care. You're passionate about these issues or the importance of it. You're going to have to reach down and replace yourself with somebody else. And you're going to have to grow that passion, that same passion within them. And hopefully that will spread. Because see, right now we're good. There's no doubt what you're going to do. But tomorrow is not promised to us. And the good Lord is going to purge all of us. Okay? Our vote's going to stop counting. And if you continue to vote after that, we're going to have major problems. So my recommendation is adopt the youth, somebody else, and then bring them in and pass your passion on to them.
You have a question up front?
Sure. Question. Is that Alan?
Yeah, it is. Hi,
Hey,
Tom. Hey, Alan Minsky, Progressive Democrats of America. And we, of course, will have a national screening via Zoom. We'll also try to drive all of our membership to all of your screenings, and I look forward to coordinating with your team. But I have a question really for the whole panel, even including possibly Tom, but Thom Hartmann is one of the top 10 rated radio shows in the country, but this does not gain any traction, and that is an understatement in the mass media. It is suppressed in the mass media. In fact, Greg said just a few minutes ago that Jill Stein challenged the election in Michigan. The candidate withstanding did not challenge the election in Michigan. And it seems, and I know this from the inside, so it's a little bit of a leading question, the official line of the Democratic Party, and maybe outside of Georgia, because Stacey Abrams may be a little bit of an outlier in this regards, but the official line of the Democratic Party is not to bring this up because it will scare people from voting. And they'll be discouraged. I think that is very wrong.
That was James Carville's routine 4 years ago. I don't think they're talking like that.
No, but it yet does not have traction in the mainstream media. This, in terms of the real democracy, could possibly be a bigger story.
Yes.
Let me give you this. But anyway, you said it. I am from Muskogee County. I know them all. And from Georgia, I know them all. And I've walked around with this. And everybody's hands are behind their back. So as an insider, you have a better understanding and idea. But here's the difference. Here's my observed difference. During the Civil Rights era, the 60s, people were willing to die, to go to jail, to lose their financial stability. Guess what? In the 2020 era, on the other side, people are willing to die, to go to jail, to perpetrate a lie. And here we are today, we can't find anybody that is willing to raise their hand and say, hey guys, this is still going on. I quit my job in California to go home, to be ready to hit the streets, to do what I can for this next election. And all I've gotten from my representatives is we'll call you when we have a meeting. That's unacceptable. And I will say it now. I'm not afraid to say it. I know where it's coming from. And the first opportunity that I have, I'm going to make sure that everybody else knows where it's coming from too.
Tell us.
For what it's worth.
One quick comment on where the Democratic Party has taken the position for a long time that if you bring up vote suppression, it'll scare people away from the polls. Stacey Abrams proved that's false.
Yes.
Okay, but, and here's one bit of good news, which is that the one voting rights lawyer within the establishment, Mark Elias, who's been screaming bloody murder about the expansion of vigilante voting. He says it's a virus out of Georgia. It's taken over the country. 2 weeks ago, Kamala Harris hired him to take on this issue. So, that's a gigantic change in the Democratic Party's attitude. But still, we have a lot of officials, and when Joe Biden says anyone who questions American democracy is undermining democracy, and I've got a lot of pushback from Democrats saying, if you say that the vote is suppressed, then you're joining, and this is the Republican line too, you're joining Donald Trump in being an election denier. So we still have some of that in the Democratic Party.
That's nice.
So again, that's why you don't rely on the parties to protect your vote. You protect your vote.
Thank you.
And I've already shared this with one MSNBC host who's a friend and 2 members of Congress, and I'm going to be spreading it as far and wide as I can. But we do need to wrap this up fairly shortly. So let's take 2 more questions. I don't know what order. You have the mic. Okay. Well, that's a clue. Who's next? Your
Hi,
name?
Nakuda, and I'm going to do the same thing with all of my outlets, make sure that as many people see this as possible. It's brilliant. We got 4 brilliant people here in a very noisy world with the zone of shit flooded with news all the time. Can each of you give us your best one line that we can then repurpose to all our networks to get people, excited about seeing this film. Like the best one line you have so people really understand how vitally important it is, because we have a very short window till November. Thank you.
My line is, this is how Republicans are trying to win. If you can't win on policy, you cheat. And that's what they're doing. I don't know if anybody wants to add to that. Governor? Major?
This film helps you understand the why. The why is important to get out and vote, and what people have died for.
Okay. And last question.
Yes, to bounce off of this fear factor you guys were talking about, I'm wondering what any of you might think about, in the week, Merrick Garland came out and made a statement warning of the tampering of the election, starting with foreign agents, and then went on to give a more general also within our country as well. I'm wondering if you have any thoughts about that, the power of that statement, of what it might signify.
Listen, these Alton Russell, Pam Reardon, the lady in red, they don't need help from Russia. Okay? This is a major distraction. Okay? I would like to see Merrick Garland say, I'm taking on this vigilante vote hunting. How about that? He's the U.S. Attorney General. He's not our, so let's stick, this is the issue. Let's stop talking about the elections being twisted from outside.
Yeah.
Okay? I mean, yeah, there's always these dangers. Putin's no lovely man. But I'd like to see our Justice Department take on justice within the United States.
And just to put a final punctuation mark on the whole thing, the reason why Merrick Garland finally, after 2 long, torturous years, decided to appoint Jack Smith and go after Donald Trump was because he was shamed into it by the January 6th committee. It was public opinion that forced him to act. And we are the ones who can generate public opinion. And that goes back to raise as much hell as you can, spread this as far as you can, tell everybody you know, and you can call the Department of Justice, by the way. They do have a telephone number that you can leave a message with. But more importantly, you can call your members of Congress. Every one of us has one representative and 2 senators. And it's all one phone number. It's 202-224-3121. It's easy to find. You can Google it. It takes you right to the switchboard. And if you don't know who your member of Congress is, just give me your zip code. They will connect you right to their office. Make it short, make it sweet. You're talking to an intern in all probability who's putting things on a checklist. So it's got to be, boil it down to 5-10 words, right? I understand that they are purging people from the voting rolls. I understand that they are preventing people from voting. What are you going to do about it? There needs to be something done about it. By the way, Greg Palast has a movie out about this. You all need to see it, and you need to make sure that the member of Congress actually sees this, or something like that, right? But just keep it short, keep it sweet, make it to the point. We all need to be doing that as well, in my opinion. Okay, so thank you all so much for coming tonight, and thank you, Greg.
SaveYourVote.org.
SaveYourVote.org. Thank you.
Thank you.